Hi, viewers. My name is Upesh Jain. Greetings from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm the host of the Exec Talk channel, a forum I started to talk to CEOs, executives, and other luminaries about their journeys and distill their experiences and learnings for our viewers' benefit. Today, we will be talking to Rajeev Madhavan, a Silicon Valley legend investor and entrepreneur. Rajeev Madhavan is a co-founder and partner of Clear Ventures, where he focuses on early-stage technology investments. As a past CEO, Rajeev brings operational skills from founding, building, and running two highly successful companies. He has the uncanny ability to deeply understand what entrepreneurs are trying to do and to steer them onto a successful path. He has been a venture investor in over 35 companies and has several notable exits, too many to list here. Prior to founding Clear in 2014, Rajeev founded three successful startups. The most recent, Magma Design Automation, became the fourth largest electronic design automation company in the world under his leadership. Rajeev served as Magma's chairman and CEO, from where he co-founded the company in 1997 through its acquisition by Synopsys in February 2012 for $580 million. Magma was listed on NASDAQ in 2001 and was ranked as the second fastest growing technology company in 2005 by Forbes. Magma provided core infrastructure software to marquee semiconductor companies. Prior to founding Magma, Rajeev co-founded and served as president and CEO of Ambit Design Systems, which was acquired by Cadence in 1998 for $280 million. Rajeev also co-founded and served as director of engineering of Logic Vision, Inc. as well. Rajeev is a recipient of the Red Herring Top Innovator Award, the Lifetime Achievement Award at NITK India, and various other awards. He earned a bachelor's degree in electronics and communication from KREC Surathkal, India, and an MSEE from Queen's University, Ontario, Canada. When Rajeev is not working, he can be found with his wife and two children, trail running, tending to his rose gardens, or holding court with technologists figuring out what comes next. Rajeev has been a personal role model for me. I have fond memories of working at Magma for close to 7 years. Seeing him in action firsthand, Rajeev was always a passionate visionary and fearless leader who was a source of motivation to the entire Magma family, yet humble and easily accessible. Thanks to you, Rajeev, the legacy of Magma lives on, and the diaspora continues to do quite well. Rajeev, with that, I'd like to extend a warm Exec Talk channel welcome to you and really appreciate the time you have given me and my viewers.
Thank you, Vish. Thanks, and it's great to be here on this forum.
Thank you. So Rajeev, starting at the beginning, could you please break it down for me and tell me about your early years and influences? You came from, I believe, a very risk-averse family, far, far from entrepreneurship. So where did you get the entrepreneurship bug or the gene from? We'd like to know.
So I think, fundamentally, my family background, Indian Revenue Service, basically, that was where my dad was in customs. And so there was no business on that side or my mother's side that I have any background on.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, I had done I think I always say my first startup was in my 10th grade. I ran a comic business. We were in a school bus that had to commute about 30 kilometers, which would take about half an hour to an hour to reach the school. So every day, what I figured out is if I carry some comics in my backpack, it started out because my dad wouldn't let me buy comic books. got a few of them that my uncle had given me. So I used those comic books to then generate revenue by lending them in the school bus. Uh, and I mean, so that was my very first business that I would lend. Eventually, I had more comic books, and I had three other people who were helping me. They would all carry comic books in their bags, and would be renting out comic books in the bus, right? So we learned a lot of things I learned in that business. I mean, obviously, my dad was okay in me doing things like that. We got caught running this business, mainly because, collecting money was very, very difficult from kids who are much bigger than you in school. I was all of 4 feet, 9 inches and 10, very thin, and a lot of people wouldn't pay me. So I hired one of the most muscle kids to do the collection for me. And he gets to read the comics first, and and in return he would collect the money from all the customers.
Right.
But we got caught by the principal of the school because he was in the bus behind. We didn't see him on one particular day, and I got promptly suspended. And my business got shut down in the 10th grade. Right? I mean, I went to that school to give a talk about entrepreneurship, and my first thing was, this is where I got my first startup going, and I got shut down in that startup as well.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, other than that, I've had shown no traits of entrepreneurship as a person, right? I mean, I came here into Canada first for my grad school, finished my grad school there, worked at Bell Northern Research. At B&R, we worked on a number of tools, including logic synthesis. This is in 85, 86, when Synopsys had just gotten formed. And in Canada, we couldn't figure out how to raise funding, etc., because there's no venture capital and things like that. So we ended up, looking at Synopsys being very envious, the fact that they could get the funding. We thought we had a better tool at that, but it did not matter whether the tool is good or bad. Eventually, the writing was on the wall with respect to somebody else being able to form a company focused on that.
Right.
So I came to California for a paper logic synthesis that I had written at ICCAD. And as I came out from the podium, Synopsys interviewed me, offered me a job. And that's when I kind of seized the startup community in Silicon Valley. I mean, before that in Canada, you're working in 1 in 10,000 people in Bell Northern Research, right? You have no idea what business is all about.
Right.
So I decided not to do it because my family completely discouraged me. You're going from a B&R, a very large company, to a small company. So I did not take that. I went back to B&R and said, I want to move to California. They assigned me to Cadence on a project that they were working with. It's called the Analog Alliance they had. We had licensed some of our technology from B&R to Cadence. And I worked on Spectre HDL. And, I created a year later, I had the opportunity to look at a number of business plans because I was a B&R engineer sitting inside the Cadence building. So the Cadence VP, who also had a secondary hat of US venture partners, Lucio Lanza, he would bring me business plans and say, Rajeev, if you were at B&R, would you use these tools? Would you be supportive of this company? And I looked at a company called Epic, and that's when I realized, wow, these guys get funding to do cool stuff.
Right.
So I kind of started drinking the Silicon Valley,
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid, and Silicon Valley startup culture a little bit was getting embodied in me when that was happening. And then I had my first product presentation at Harris Semiconductor in Melbourne, Florida, for Cadence, right? So after a year, I decided to leave B&R, and Cadence hired me on the same project I was working mutually in alliance at Cadence on. This is the analog division's early days. So I started that project, and I had my first customer pitch at Harris Semiconductor in Melbourne, Florida for Cadence. This was my first ever sales engagement. I've never done sales prior to that meeting. So I presented my product. On the way back, Jim Solomon, who's the founder of Cadence, He was sitting in business class. I was the only other engineer in the plane in coach. He decided to upgrade me and bring me into business class, sits me next. He had one too many wine, and I had asked one question to him, what would you have done differently? And he said, this analog division that you're now part of and we're working on, I would have done that as a new startup. And a light bulb went in my head, like, why am I staying here?
Yeah.
Not doing a startup. So those two were the kind of functionality that did a switch in me. And the next week I quit. I quit my job a week later. I went to Jim, and Jim called me actually and said, why are you quitting? So I said, Jim, you told me you would have done this as a new thing. You want to do startups. And that's kind of the origin of me deciding to do a startup, right? It's just
Right.
inspiration from fellow people
Mm-hmm.
in Silicon Valley. I mean, Jim Solomon was as good as it gets in terms of a great
Totally.
person who had done a great company and had, prior to that, run a lot of good things at National Semiconductor. So he very reputed, respected person, and his advice and help and thought made me kind of go and say, I need to jump the line and actually go and do a startup.
Right.
And that's when I did Logic Vision, basically, right? I mean, that's kind of the origin of how the jump to Logic Vision happened.
I see. But Rajiv, still, I mean, you're at a very early stage of your career and you're still establishing yourself in other aspects of life. How do you actually tip the scales? I mean, how do you actually take that first step and take that risk?
So the interesting thing is this, right? I mean, so I came to the Valley. I mean, I'd worked a year. We were renting an apartment in Fair Oaks Street, not the greatest of apartments or anything.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had a part-time job that she could, because she was just graduating and getting her degree, that paid enough of the bills. But what had happened was when I was at BNR, and this is also true about me, is through my undergrad, grad school, I never worked hard. Okay, I coasted through life with the minimum amount of effort needed to keep my parents happy enough. That was my objective of grades, etc. At BNR, I had a manager who was very, very, incidental in, I mean, he did the carrot and stick that needed to be done to me. I mean, so what happened is in April 1st in BNR, you have this history that the new guy who joined the team is made fun of with an April Fool's joke. So the wax VMS machine that we were using, actually it was an IBM mainframe, that, when I logged in, my account was removed, etc. The guys had played one on me. And I immediately, recoiled and decided I'll teach the rest of the crew I had hacked into the whole Unix network of the company. I stunned everybody's account I blocked. So this manager of mine called me and said, Rajeev, I am very appreciative that you could actually put a fight that fast. You're a fighter. I don't see that Rajeev at work.
Mm-hmm.
And, this was a person, his name was Ed Wapney, very, very incidental in my life in changing me from a semi-lazy, do the minimum kind of character to turning on an on-off switch on me, right? I mean, and that was very needed. Somebody threatening me to be fired is an essential portion in your life that kind of turns on the thought process. God, I mean, he sees the positive and he says the positive, and at the same time tells me what the negatives are. So I turned on a switch. I became like the expert on HDLs, wrote a book on Verla. I mean, it kind of, in 2 years, 24/7, I became a workaholic, right? And I really enjoyed what I was doing. I never thought I would enjoy any of that. It's just, a means to an end. And I suddenly flipped the lights went on and it kind of made a big change. So in a way, once that happened, my trust in my ability to execute on technology was very high. I mean, maybe egotistically high.
Right.
I did not fear any of that, right? I mean, it was just the fear on what I could do is not what limited me. And probably, I did not have the upper limit of what the restrictions were.
Right.
And the challenge was, my family in India. They thought, so I joined Logic Vision. In my mom's world, it was like he's gone from 10,000 people to a company of 800 people. And now he's a company of 4. He sends my sister to lobby me not to leave my job, right? That's how negative my family was on doing startups at that time, right? And we were not, back in 91, exit 93, when you're doing startups, there was a tendency that there was a feeling that Indians could at best write software, for example, right? We come in with that background of software services, etc. Business, we were not considered good in managing people. I mean, we didn't have a Satya Nadella or a Sundar Pichais, etc. So management was untested. So a lot of the VCs were very, very questioning on all aspects of things associated with that, right?
Right.
I used to get the question, so I know you can write code, who's going to run the company, right? I mean, it's just pretty, you got measured before there was any real metric to measure us with. So it was very interesting. Those were the kind of challenges we were facing, and those challenges were seen as a motivation more than anything else. So whenever I go through that negative, I would say, I got to show this guy that he's completely full of himself, right? So that was a great experience to go through that. And every time that happened in my life, it was phenomenal to go through that. So I never really had any fear. There was enough money to pay the mortgage or the apartment rent from what my wife's salary was. And, I took very little in salary in the first few months when I made these jumps. So it was a big reset from what had happened. But I was so full of myself in some sense that was not even a thought that went through my mind.
Yeah. So breaking the stereotype is what fueled your passion in some
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah.
And being questioned on that stereotype, right? I mean, at Logic Vision and a lot of experience. Every company I learned different things. One was like, obviously I've not done any sales, learned, that business is a very important thing at Logic Vision. At Ambit, managing people and being able to put a team to get the maximum out of it was very, very, not the greatest skills that I had to so much so that at Ambit, even though we are only about 40 to 80 people at the end, I didn't know everybody's name, family, or anything. Whereas if you remember at Magma,
Yeah.
I knew, even if I'm like 1,200 people, 1,400 people, I knew everybody, and I made it a point to know that. So culturally, it was all adapting myself, knowing the weakness every time you go from one to the other. And there have been enormous amount of weakness that you explore. And the best thing is to realize it, accept it, and move on.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you use your previous gig as a springboard for your next one.
that's right. I mean, you learn and you improve, and every experience has been great from that perspective.
Right.
There are different things I would have done at Magma had I had the clear experience. So all that you just learn and you have to keep going to doing that.
So Rajeev, what led you to start Magma, right? There were already multiple solutions out there in that space. And anybody with a traditional mindset would say, why go into an area where solutions exist?
So it's actually, I mean, from a very simple perspective, that may be the observation at a top level. At the time the company was formed, the chip design was going through, and even now, every node, there is some transition, right? The noise becomes an issue. Second order things become an issue. Synopsys, which did not have place and route at that time, it was actually Avanti, Cadence, etc. Avanti and Cadence were litigating each other. We came in with the concept of, we don't care whether it's synthesis or layout. We want to provide that does a full closure of the design, right? So that's why the whole concept was RTL to GDS2. Even if we did the netlist to GDS2, we did the optimization across the whole flow, right? We were the first ones to pioneer that. So we had a lot of unique things that we did, right? We just and because of my previous experience at Ambit, I knew that I was doing my better job in timing in the front end, and everything was being lost in the back end by Avanti. So
Right.
I knew I could take them on, and essentially the effort was to try to get that. That experience led me to say there's an opportunity here, and
Right.
we went and did that experience, right?
So there was a subtle gap that you were able to identify, and
Yeah, the
yeah,
gap was extremely intelligent,
yeah,
used by us, because we
yeah.
used this marketing of fixed timing and all those things was well done.
Hmm.
Uh, and Ambit had prepared me in marketing for Magma in some sense. Before that, I was zero in marketing.
Hmm.
And it kind of became a passion that you learn through this process. Did a very good job of doing those things. And as we went through it, we also found that, I mean, as Steve Jobs launched the iPod and iPhone subsequently, power became a big objective, and we were the first in all of those things. And almost all objectives that was happening in physical design, Magma led the challenge, right? I mean, we would be the first guy out the door, and we had
Right.
a culture of innovation, of re-innovation, and getting going. And I think all those were fantastic at what the team executed. I mean, we had a fantastic team.
Absolutely.
I think the quality of the 1,200 people were unquestionably the best that you could get. I mean, it's just really very talented. I mean, if there's a failure, it's my failure. And that's the thought that went through my mind at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think besides the quality of the people, I think it was also the attitude of not taking no for an answer, to just shine in the face of adversity, right? And that also was a hallmark of the corporation.
Yeah, I think I also, I mean, I would go to customers and understand their design, right? I mean, I would not come back without, I mean, not understanding that. So, all the Magma customers, their directors, VPs are now CEOs of some of these companies, and I talk to them and say, they commend that our culture that we had of trying to understand them, right? And it's a very
Okay.
important thing that we did,
Yeah.
right? So to me, fundamentally, it was not a risky decision to do Magma. Magma was an easy decision in some
Mhm.
sense. It
Okay.
was also easy because at Ambit, raising money against Synopsys was very difficult. Every VC felt, because Synopsys had just gone public on NASDAQ.
Mhm.
There's this 8 people in a room telling me that they can run faster than Synopsys, 8 times faster, 10 times faster in benchmark. Nobody, would believe us, and even if they believe us, funding against Synopsys was considered so
Right.
suicidal that raising money was difficult. At Magma, raising money was very, very easy. If we ask for $1 million, we'll get 5, right? So it was also the internet boom was going on as we were formed. The time also helped us, but raising capital was never an issue for Magma. So there's no risk from a number of vectors that Magma was in, right?
Right. I- It was a great experience. So Rajiv, what led you to the formation of Clear Ventures after your exit from Magma? And how is being a VC different from being a CEO? And why did you choose the markets you invest in now, on
Yeah.
the enterprise side?
So obviously, since '98, when Ambit had its first exit, I started investing in startups, right? I mean, since '98, from '98 to 2012, when Magma was running, I had
Mhm.
invested in about 28 startups in
Mm.
that period that I was running Magma. And the reason why I did that, actually, it increased a lot when Magma went through a litigation period, right?
Mhm.
Because what happened is we had 55 lawyers working for Magma, and I needed an outage, basically a complete detox where I'm looking at new technology and invigorating myself. Talking to lawyers is the most disheartening
Draining.
that you could have. So
Right.
having more lawyers spend time with you was actually very demoralizing for me. And so I did more investments just because I wanted to kind of have this Saturday morning spend time with the entrepreneurs. It was the greatest experience. So the byproduct of what happened is as a result of that litigation was I spent the time investing in things which were not semi, which was general software, VXTAR, a lot of companies which are like really not connected with what semi
New markets.
was new markets.
Yeah.
So I kind of saw it as a great opportunity for me. I learned how to look at entrepreneurs and make decisions about are they lying, or can I actually understand the technology enough? So I did that during 98 to 2012, right? I mean, I did a lot of that. And on my Magma board, there was a VC called Mark Perry, who was very, very much a true gentleman venture capitalist, right? He's somebody who I respected a lot, who would tell me, the issues straight up to my face of, I like your finance team is in bad shape, Rajeev, you gotta get this fixed. And I enjoyed working with Mark entirely. That I said, if I get an opportunity to be Mark Perry and do in startups, I should do that, right? There's a little bit of grass is greener on the other side also. When you're running operations and you had taken this much litigation load, I mean, there was a drainage on my battery that had been drained. I probably, so it was kind of a combination of those 2 or 3 issues that made me realize, okay, I will do some investments. And so from 2012 to 15, I did my own investments, where it was not investments alone. Sometimes I would come up with the idea of the product, like there was a company called Robin, where the founding team came to me with, okay, we could do this in storage. I kind of said, okay, if you add this, we could make a product. And so it kind of was a very different model where I was investing and helping them run initially. And in 2015, 14 actually, Chris Rust, who's my partner at Clear Ventures, contacted me. I met him in one of the private investments that I had done in 98 in a company called VXTAL. And he would call me on any semiconductor company to kind of get my opinion on the team and the technology. So I would meet with him occasionally. So he called me and he said, look, what you're doing, we could raise money and do a venture fund. Are you interested? Took me 6 months because I wasn't sure what I'm getting into. Very honestly,
Right.
It's not like, in fact, earlier days I had less things to lose, and I had, I would take less time to make a decision than I did in the latter stages. So I, after 6 months, agreed to doing this venture fund, and I enjoy a lot of things about VC land, and I will talk to you about that. But I choose markets which are very, very new and high potential, high risk. I am not like, for example, almost all the semiconductor startups which were doing big AI chips were Magma customers. If you look at Block, if you look at every one of them, all of those guys we knew because I had sold to them before, and they all had enough perspective. The first call on those chips were to us. We decided not to invest because, to me, we had a fund which not huge enough. And I felt that AI, knowing Jensen, it's going to be very difficult to beat Jensen up and CUDA up, right? So I did not make a single investment in AI chip, right? I mean, it was just, to me, that story has not been written in 2024, 25. We're going to see how many of them are going to succeed against NVIDIA. So we make a tactical decision on not just technology, but the market aspect of it, right? I mean, can this really succeed? Because I know people can create a lot of great technology in Silicon Valley. I mean, we have some of the best people, but it's a question of championing it to the right product and to the right goals, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think VCs also come in all flavors, right? And the investment philosophy is different. The market segment they address is different. But seems like you went from kind of a one-man show wearing multiple hats, where you were doing the ideation, the due diligence, and the investment, and to a let's say a professionally managed fund where you
Professionally
outsource
managed.
these brands.
And this is where my co-partner, Chris does a phenomenal job, right? I mean, he's very good at managing those kind of fund requirements, etc., because he has done that at Sequoia and other places before, right? I
Right.
have not, managing the LP relationship is not something that I look forward to, and he did a fantastic job, has done a fantastic job of it.
Right.
So to me, having that and having this side, we started doing that. There have been, there are days when I wish I wasn't doing that, but there are days when you enjoy the best thing about venture is a new startup pitching to me and explaining a new technology that I am naive about or an idiot about, and in 2 months becoming savvy enough, right?
Yeah.
That
Learning. Yeah.
that spike in both knowledge and spike in adrenaline, is fantastic. The negative, there are many that I can list as well. This is so I jumped into doing that, and I think Clear is very, very unique in the sense that we have an operational team. We help our companies do their first sales, do their recruitment. We have written software to do these things to help them, right? I mean, we actually have a software team writing. We have a technology partner as a partner whose job is he was a VP of AI in a public company before that, right? And so this is the kind of talent we built and use to improve and change the methodology in which decisions are made as a venture capitalist, right? Or decisions are helped at the companies. But one thing I look, to me, every company is not a statistical arbitrage, which is what venture is all about. To me, every company is to be a success, and I'll put my dog on hard work to make that happen. Right? That's
Right.
that is a and which is probably negative. I'm not saying that's always positive, right? It's just much more negative for a entrepreneur becoming a VC, no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, seems like besides just mailing a check, you like to handhold the entrepreneurs in the initial stages, and
But
you almost feel, yeah,
I give this example, right? I mean,
yeah,
so, I have, for example, some other companies where the founders and me, we can sit down and argue about technology, and at the end of the game, if both sides agree on something and we are going and executing, I'm perfectly happy and very, very, which is the Magma culture also that we have. We have to intensely argue and agree on a project schedule and then go execute.
yep.
Are sometimes founders where that's not the case. I'm not going to tell you that when venture, that's not the case. It's almost like teaching, in some cases, it's like teaching your daughter how to drive. I mean, you don't want to be sitting that. You really, I couldn't teach my daughter how to drive because it's very, very difficult actually. They would do something and you would be very, very upset about it. So
Yeah.
finding the right entrepreneur with whom you can have a technology discussion, disagreements, agreement after that, and going about executing in the best way is important for me.
Yeah, I think that analogy resonates with me because I did teach my daughter how to drive also. So Rajeev, what are the three things you look for in your founding team before you invest?
So,
How do these qualities manifest themselves in their, personalities? Let's say you're meeting somebody for the first time and you need to make a judgment call on,
so in general,
Mhm.
we are funding companies before which they have a PowerPoint, etc. Right? This is seed.
Mhm.
Is what Clear is known for. We have only one investment where we started with Series A. Everything else is seed. So they don't have a PowerPoint. They can go to a whiteboard and say this is the general area that they are planning to do. Don't be surprised if by the next 2-3 meetings we have become pretty reasonably good in those areas if we like the technology.
Mhm.
What we look for is an entrepreneur with the curiosity, challenge. He or she is defining a new market or a new product, but accepting that these things have you would never have thought about all the issues, right? I mean, so we do put them through this test of asking things and bringing experts in doing that, and we watch them operate, right? If you are not, and you tend to drink your own Kool-Aid,
Right.
that's a wrong entrepreneur that you're backing. You need somebody
Yeah.
with that vigor, drive, passion on the idea you have,
Right.
but at the same time can accept the issues that come along, because there's no product that's new without issues that happens, right? It's the reality of life. So at the stage we are funding the entrepreneur. We look at their past experiences, and we look at, have they grown through the ranks? Have they actually? I mean, most of the entrepreneurs we fund are probably in the 30s to late 40s, right? That's the range that we are doing most of the investments.
Right.
So what have they achieved during that period? Talk to their references, figuring out some of those questions. But I think it's the and during the diligence you find a lot of issues, right? You do find the things. We are very upfront with the founder, and it's not to be negative to them. It's to be kind of how do they handle it, and can they change all those issues? That's the question that we need to
providing candid feedback, right?
So we do that, and that's what helps put that together, right? So, and then before we write a check, we may write a small check with that meeting. But the second check, we need to understand what market are we addressing with this tool, and what is the total available market. Because if you pick the wrong market, there is no amount of thing that can help you, right?
Yeah.
So we have to get that squared away. We may lose 200K, 300K, etc., to get them to that point, which is fine. Beyond that, we need to know what that level is, right? Even though there is, in some cases, the first check I wrote in a company called Floor was, I think, $6 or $7 million for the first round we wrote. But it's because, the founders were previous customers of ours at Magma. They had beaten the shit out of me before, and I respect them for that, right? I mean,
Right.
it's great to have worked with some of them, and I respect them enough to make that happen, right? So it was a decision where there was no personality issues or any of those things that I first said was not an issue. Does the product work? At that stage, it was not at all clear, but it was a big risk that we've taken.
Awesome. And what advice would you give new entrepreneurs who are kind of sitting on the fence? A lot of people, have that mindset that perhaps you grew up with, right? And then you transitioned. But a lot of people are afraid of taking that first step. So
I think, look, because of the change of technology to AI, there's a real point guard change that's happening right now, right? I mean, I almost compare it to this. When I was applying for engineering school, somebody told me, don't apply for civil because it's already done, right? I mean, you apply for the latest and coolest, which at that time was computer science and EE and all those things, right?
Right.
Same thing today. Computer science may be at a question mark level. You don't need to be learning programming and things. It's just going to change. So AI is so pivotal in changing the flow that this is the best time to do a startup. Because so far, I almost compare it to this, right? In the early history of any religion, you would have some prophets or some religious leaders who could read and who would understand the scriptures. It used to be the same with computer science. There's about a few million people who is running the show for all the several billion, 9 billion population that exists in the world right now, right? Now that is going to be gone. Every human being will eventually have that talent with what we are creating. That means you have an opportunity to create the next set of technology and waves of technology in the immediate future, right? So this is the best time to do it. If you have any entrepreneurial DNA, you should do it right now. If you're on the edge, right? Now, having said that, you shouldn't do things which are things that the next guy is sitting in some place in any part of the world. The counter argument is, if everybody can write it, why can't that team from there
You're right.
create the same thing in half the time once you have showed how exactly it can be done? So you need to ask that question in most of the problems you're going to be solving with this new set of technology, right? So
Absolutely.
this is the time to jump
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
So it seems like a huge market discontinuity, just like the internet was in the 90s. And there's a lot of uncharted territory that is up for grabs. And, hence the
I mean,
opportunity.
this is it's a question of what is the application
Right.
that is going to make a big enough change in such a market, right?
Right.
And it's a phenomenal opportunity for entrepreneurs who are on the fence. Pair yourself with venture people who are willing to write early checks, but work with you on formulating the use cases right and getting it done. But it is by far the best time for doing it. So much so that there's half of me which wants to go back and run a company for that reason, right? It's like you can shake up things, right?
Yeah. So, how do you think AI is changing the EDA landscape, or for
Yeah.
that matter, the general landscape?
So, I know you work at cadence and synopsis. What has been done in EDA so far with AI is, even in our Magma days, the best AE to the worst AE, there was a big gap, okay? Or a best designer to the worst designer, there was a big gap. What was the difference? The difference was the best AE knew all the options of the tool, knew how to tweak the tool in a particular fashion to get the results. Today, all of the AI that is gone in by from both the companies is to kind of narrow that gap. An average user is getting better quality, and the gap between the high and the low has come down a lot more. That's what AI has happened in EDA so far. The second set of AI that it's not like AI, core AI has been used to change how certain things are done today. It's still place and route, it's still this, it's still verification, it's still analog, it's this and that, right? Now, there will be a next set of layer, which is the generative AI layer on top of it, for results, parsing, etc. And some of it will create some models, etc. I don't think both of those markets are going to be the eventual differentiation. The eventual differentiation is going to be, can you actually create and change the methodology in which this happens, right? EDA is one of those places where there's like probably 30–40% of any tool is algorithmic, right? And there's about 60%, which is heuristics. Some rules, some things, some in the past is put. Those heuristics can easily be replaced with an AI-based flow. No human being's heuristic algorithms is eventually going to match to that in an automated AI solution. I am yet to see that in EDA, for example. I'm yet to see that in many applications of AI. Right? So all the superfluous things that are being done today. The core engines, can you get enough data to model it, and can you do it in a completely different way? That will be the enterprise 4.0 that will happen. And it hasn't happened yet, right? It will happen in EDA, it'll happen in a mechanical CAD, and in basically electronic system level, various aspects of things it'll percolate. But that's not the change that's happened. So we are at game one. And some of the industries are moving to it. There is a lot to play into this that can be done. I haven't funded very many EDA companies. I've done one or two which kind of has got some products which sell into EDA as well as part of it, but not really into EDA. And that's because I did not want to, if I do EDA investment, I become more into it than I should, because I can't avoid the fact that I know so much about this space, right? So I've stayed away from doing that.
I see. So there's different verticals, and AI is kind of a backplane that will impact a bunch of things in different.
AI is like what cement did in the manufacturing business, in the concrete and civil engineering business, right? I mean, when cement came about, okay, things changed a lot. And it is that kind of a core infrastructure which is going to change various aspects of what we do.
Right. So, Rajiv, you've kind of been there, done that. And so what motivates you today? When you get up in the morning, what makes you tick?
Well, I think, right now, this AI energy has been fantastic. I'm on, I think, 8 boards, of which there are a couple of companies which I believe will become a household name in electronics, right? I mean, and et cetera. So they keep me challenged and they keep me interested. On the new company side, it's trying to find the applications. And, I've learned a lot. When you watch people on how they run companies and you get involved in at the board levels and do this investment level, you learn yet another trick that I did not have at Magma. So my hope is to apply that in something next that I do as well, whether it is, running a company, whether it's investing, whatever aspect of it is it's sort of new things being learned, new things being applied. I've learned a lot of things that could be done a lot more efficiently
Sure.
than what I did in the past,
Yeah.
right? So sort of, and being able to help that, and whether it's in a public company scenario or a private company scenario, is essentially what helps from that. So clearly opportunity to do that. And, I'm very, very excited and bullish about the changes that will happen from this new trend. It's trying to latch on to the best application that you can make the largest impact on.
Right. So it's just that the waters are a little murky right now.
Yeah,
As
that's the best time, right?
That's the best. Chaos is the best opportunity, right? Okay, so Rajiv, talking about the non-professional side, as an avid gardener myself, I'd like to ask you about your interest in your rose garden, right? I know you've been interested in that forever. So how did you develop that, and how do you still find time to do it?
Actually, it's not forever, because my sister would tell you this guy used to destroy any plant at home. With the cricket bat, I would whack everything. I practice my shots on plants. So this is how it used to be. So when I bought a house in Fremont, we had 6 roses there that the previous tenant had left behind. Right. When I moved here, I brought those 6 here because I like those 6 into the house. And then we just bought the house. Magma was going public in file, and I was visiting an investor in Portland, Oregon. On the flight up, I sat next to a guy who has a lot of rose pictures.
Yeah.
So I asked this guy, what do you do? And he said, well, I'm setting up this website. I don't want to give a publicity on their website, but he says, I want to do this website for selling roses. And I got this barewood roses, blah, blah. He explained all the stuff. And he said, oh, so where are you? The nursery is right about a mile from where I was staying that night, right? So next morning, I had 2 hours to kill. I went to his nursery. And I bought 400 roses from there.
Was this Jackson Perkins?
No. It's a different company, but I did end up buying, from them 400 roses, and I wish I had done it a lot more organized, putting names, etc. But now it kind of became, and then I think in my daughter's grade 10, by that time I probably had like about 1,500 rose bushes, and had kind of become big.
Yeah.
In the space of growing it, that my daughter went to the San Jose Municipal Gardens and came back and said, "Oh, their roses are bigger than yours." So I saw that. Anybody who's worked for me, they would know I'm very competitive. I'm not. So I got very competitive, and I've beaten them. And so it's a very large garden, rose garden now, and it's been a great experience. But it grew from just that.
Those 6 roses.
The 6 roses, 400 by accident. And then, the next wave more because it kind of distracted me and kept me like during the litigation at Magma, this Saturday morning, like we went through 3 years of turmoil at the
Mhm.
company. Saturday morning, I decided I'll get out to the garden, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I work with the two gardeners that come in, and I do the work with them.
Mhm.
That and doing startups were my, kind of mental sanity process.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened. Now it's taken a beating in the last couple of years, mainly because I think I'm reaching that point where, okay, this has been there, done that.
Yeah.
You need to find the next thing that happens.
Yeah. So just like with your startups, you got your hands dirty with the roses as well.
Yeah.
This has been great, Rajeev. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time. Any final words of wisdom for my viewers?
No, I think, look, we are at a turning point in computer science. The importance of computer science in many ways is going to go down. This is your last chance to do a startup. Go do it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rajeev. I really appreciate you taking this time and your words of wisdom. Thank you very much. Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Upesh.
evening.